For centuries, the galactic concord held together an uneasy peace between hundreds of species scattered across the stars. Humanity, a latecomer to the galactic stage, had risen swiftly within its ranks, earning both admiration and suspicion. Known for their adaptability and relentless innovation, humans became indispensable in many of the Concord's initiatives, whether it was leading defense efforts against pirate incursions, developing advanced energy technologies, or expanding trade networks. Earth's influence grew steadily, but so did the resentment of certain alien factions who saw humanity's rise as a threat to the old order. Behind closed doors, dissent brewed. The Ythar, a long-lived and power-hungry species that had dominated Concord politics for eons, viewed humanity as reckless and opportunistic. Their ruling caste, led by Chancellor Varric, began plotting in secret to curb Earth's influence. They couldn't deny the technological and military advancements humanity had brought to the table, but they feared it would soon overshadow their own. The Concord Council, a body of dozens of alien species, was subtly manipulated by the Ythar's propaganda. Whispers that humans were overstepping, that they were steering the Concord for their own benefit. The tipping point came during a diplomatic crisis in the Garaxis system. A minor rebellion broke out on a planet inhabited by an alien species under Concord protection. The Ythar leaked falsified intelligence, claiming human operatives had incited the rebellion to destabilize the system and secure access to its valuable resources. Despite humanity's protests and the lack of evidence, the seeds of doubt had already been planted. Other species, already uneasy with humanity's growing dominance, seized the opportunity to question Earth's loyalty. A special session of the Concord Council was convened. Humanity's representatives, led by Ambassador Kessara, pleaded their case, presenting data that clearly refuted the Ythar's claims. But it wasn't enough. The council chambers, once a place of collaboration and unity, were now filled with suspicion. One by one, species that had once stood shoulder to shoulder with humanity began to side with the Ythar. The murmurings of discontent grew louder until the final vote was cast. The verdict was shocking. Humanity would be expelled from the Concord, its ships recalled, its trade routes cut off, its influence purged. The announcement sent shockwaves through Earth's political and military leadership. The streets of every major human city erupted in protests, anger boiling over as citizens watched their species be cast out of the very alliance they had helped to strengthen. The political climate shifted overnight. Some called for reconciliation, desperate to regain Concord's favor, while others demanded retribution, refusing to be humiliated by alien powers any longer. In response, Earth's leaders made a fateful decision. They would not beg for re-entry into the Concord. Instead, they would prepare. The Terran fleet, long used to working alongside Concord forces, would now stand alone. Factories ramped up production, not for trade, but for war. New technologies were developed in secret, hidden away from the prying eyes of their former allies. If the galaxy wanted to test humanity's resolve, they would find it unbreakable. Humanity had been cast aside, but the stars would soon learn, when pushed to the brink, humans do not submit, they rise. In the aftermath of humanity's expulsion from the Galactic Concord, an eerie quiet settled over the stars. It wasn't the peaceful calm of diplomacy, but the cold, oppressive silence of isolation. Trade routes that had once bustled with the movement of ships and goods between Earth and its former allies were now barren. Alien species that had once called humans friends and partners no longer responded to Earth's transmissions. Where there had once been alliances, there was now only a vast, empty void. Earth's colonies felt the weight of this silence most acutely. On the fringes of human space, colonies like Novus Prime and Ether Station, once thriving on interstellar trade and scientific cooperation, suddenly found themselves cut off. Supply lines dried up. Messages to nearby alien worlds went unanswered. But the colonists were not defenseless. They had seen the writing on the wall long before the Concorde had turned its back on Earth. These outposts had begun stockpiling resources and weapons in anticipation of the fallout, and their resolve only hardened in the wake of humanity's isolation. Across human space, the message was clear: survival now depended on standing alone. Back on Earth, the response was equally swift. The government declared martial law, and the United Terran Coalition, UTC, a joint body of Earth's military and political leaders, assumed full control. Factories across Earth's industrial hubs went into overdrive, producing advanced warships, drone fleets, and planetary defense systems at an unprecedented rate. Shipyards in the asteroid belt and on Luna worked around the clock, while research facilities deep beneath the surface of Mars developed new technologies that would give humanity an edge. The UTC knew that the silence wouldn't last forever. Sooner or later, the galaxy would come to test whether humanity's expulsion had left them vulnerable. For now, Earth's leadership turned its attention inward to consolidate and fortify. The loss of Concorde resources was a heavy blow, but humanity had always thrived under pressure. New alliances were formed, not with alien species, but between the various human factions that had once been divided by national interests. The UTC unified Earth's governments, spacefaring corporations, and colonies into a single military-industrial machine. The cold silence, as the media came to call it, became a rallying cry for all of humanity. Where once humans had relied on diplomacy and trade, now they would rely on their own ingenuity and will to survive. Despite the unified front, tension lingered beneath the surface. Some believed that the UTC's militarization was too extreme, that humanity should continue to pursue peace with the Concorde even after the betrayal. These voices, however, were quickly drowned out by the growing militarist sentiment. The harsh truth was that no one trusted the Concorde anymore, not after the sudden betrayal. If humanity were to survive, they would need to prepare for war. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, old enemies stirred. The Syndicate, a brutal coalition of exiled warlords, slavers, and opportunists, saw humanity's expulsion as a chance to strike. For decades, they had avoided direct confrontation with the Concorde, but now they sensed weakness in Earth's isolation. Spies moved through the shadows, gathering information on Earth's new defenses. Syndicate warships began to mass at the edge of human space, probing for weak points. The cold silence was about to be broken. Yet Earth was not defenseless. Far from it. Humanity had prepared for this. As the first Syndicate ships crossed into human territory, they would find something unexpected. Humanity, far from cowering in its isolation, was ready for the challenge. In the shadows of space, Earth's fleet waited, its ships armed with weapons designed in secret labs, each one built to withstand the onslaught that was surely coming. In the cold silence, humanity did not fear. They adapted, and they would not break. Sithros was a vital human mining colony located on the edge of known space, far from Earth's central systems. Its mineral-rich moons were the lifeblood of Earth's war machine, fueling the production of advanced weaponry and starships. The Syndicate knew this. They had been watching humanity's movements, tracking supply lines, and analyzing weak points. Sithros was isolated, lightly defended, and seemed like the perfect target for a swift and devastating strike. The Syndicate's warlords, eager to prove their strength against a now isolated humanity, massed their fleet near the uncharted fringes of the Garna Rift. Ships of all shapes and sizes, pirate cruisers, scavenge frigates, and repurposed Concorde warships, drifted silently in the darkness, preparing for the kill. They believed the assault would be a simple hit-and-run operation. Sithra's defenses were minimal, and without the support of the Galactic Concorde, humanity wouldn't be able to mount a coordinated response in time. It was the perfect plan, or so they thought. When the Syndicate fleet finally emerged from the shadow of the Garna Rift, their ships descended on Sithros like predators on wounded prey. Hundreds of vessels, a sprawling formation of firepower and ruthlessness, roared into the system, intent on overwhelming the colony's defenses in one brutal stroke. The miners and colonists on Cythros had little more than orbital turrets and outdated defensive platforms to stand between them and annihilation. As the syndicate closed in, alarms blared throughout the colony. Miners dropped their tools and scrambled for shelter. Civilian ships rushed toward the surface in a desperate bid to escape the impending slaughter. Syndicate ships swooped in, launching waves of fighters and bombers toward the planet's surface. Explosions blossomed in orbit as the first defensive platforms were torn apart by the onslaught. It seemed like the end for Cythros, but unknown to the Syndicate, humanity had not been idle. As the first Syndicate cruiser entered high orbit, the trap was sprung. From the asteroid belt surrounding the system, stealth ships, invisible to the Syndicate's sensors, decloaked and launched a coordinated assault. These were the Vanguard, Earth's most advanced warships, equipped with cutting-edge stealth technology and experimental weaponry. They had been waiting for this moment, biding their time in the cold darkness of space, completely undetected by the Syndicate's scouts. The first strike came without warning. Plasma cannons and high-velocity railguns tore through the Syndicate's leading ships, shredding their armor in seconds. The ambush was precise, brutal, and utterly devastating. Syndicate warships, taken by surprise, scrambled to return fire, but they were disoriented, caught off guard by an enemy they hadn't even known was there. Panic rippled through the ranks of the Syndicate fleet as explosions rippled across their formation. But Earth's forces didn't stop there. From the surface of Cythros, hidden planetary defense grids activated. Massive cannons, long buried beneath the rocky terrain, fired beams of energy that ripped through the Syndicate fleet. Orbital defense platforms, once thought obsolete, sprang to life, unleashing waves of automated drones that swarmed the attackers. The Syndicate fleet, once so confident in their overwhelming numbers, found themselves trapped. Chaos erupted as their ships collided, their retreat cut off by the precise positioning of the human fleet. Syndicate warlords screamed orders, but their chain of command crumbled under the weight of the ambush. The Terran Navy, led by Admiral Raker, pressed the advantage. Human warships moved in like wolves to a slaughter, systematically cutting down the Syndicate's forces. Raker had anticipated the Syndicate's overconfidence and had prepared Cythros as the perfect bait. The enemy had underestimated humanity's resilience, and now they were paying the price. In the end, the Battle of Cythros was a massacre. The Syndicate's fleet, broken and scattered, limped away with a fraction of its original strength. What had been intended as humanity's defeat had become their greatest victory yet. The galaxy would hear of the ambush at Cythros, and it would know humanity would not be so easily conquered. In the aftermath, as debris floated through the void and Cythros' defenses returned to standby, the message was clear. Earth was not alone, not weak, and not afraid. The cold silence of isolation had only made humanity sharper, more prepared for the fight to come. The Syndicate had made its move, but humanity had responded with overwhelming force. And this was just the beginning. The Syndicate, humiliated by the devastating ambush at Cythros, was seething with rage. What they had thought would be a quick and decisive blow to humanity had turned into a massacre for their own forces. The Syndicate's warlords, once confident in their overwhelming numbers, now found themselves scrambling to regroup. But their pride would not allow them to back down. Instead, they doubled down, amassing an even larger fleet to strike at the heart of human space. This time, they would crush Earth's defenses once and for all. Their target was not Earth itself, but the vital warplanes, interstellar highways that allowed faster-than-light travel between systems. These lanes were the lifeblood of any galactic campaign, allowing fleets to move quickly across vast distances. If the Syndicate could seize control of the warp lanes, they could sever Earth's ability to send reinforcements to its colonies, starve its fleets of supplies, and slowly tighten the noose around the human homeworld. It was a brilliant strategy. The Syndicate believed that no matter how strong Earth's defenses were, they would be useless if the warp lanes were controlled by their enemies. But Earth's commanders, led by Admiral Raker, anticipated the move. They knew the Syndicate couldn't afford another direct assault like Sithros. The Terran Navy began to reposition its forces in preparation for what would become the largest and most complex battle humanity had ever faced. The warp lanes leading to the Sol system, and by extension Earth, became the focal point of their defense strategy. They couldn't allow the Syndicate to gain control of these vital routes. The battle began in the Vega system, a critical junction where multiple warp lanes converged. The Syndicate's fleet surged into the system, thousands of ships strong, bristling with firepower and vengeance. Their plan was simple: overwhelm the human forces with sheer numbers and take control of the warp gates before Earth could organize a defense. But Admiral Raker had laid a trap far more intricate than the one at Sithros. As the Syndicate fleet entered the system, they encountered only a handful of Terran warships, outgunned and outnumbered, or so it seemed. The Syndicate commanders, eager for a quick victory, pushed forward, expecting to overwhelm the humans with a single strike. However, as they moved deeper into the system, strange anomalies began to appear. Their warp drives flickered. Navigation systems went haywire. What they didn't know was that Earth had deployed a new weapon: gravitic distorters, devices that created unstable pockets of spacetime around the warp lanes. The Syndicate fleet found themselves trapped in a chaotic, unpredictable environment where their massive numbers became a disadvantage. Ships collided, forced into erratic flight patterns by the gravitational distortions. Syndicate commanders struggled to maintain control, but the confusion spread faster than they could react. And that's when the real attack began. From hidden positions in asteroid fields and behind planets, the full might of the Terran Navy emerged. Hundreds of human warships, equipped with advanced stealth systems and warp-scrambling technology, launched a coordinated strike. The Vanguard-class stealth frigates that had devastated the Syndicate at Sithros now returned, but this time they were supported by newly developed Tempest-class carriers, which unleashed swarms of age-driven drones that swarmed over the Syndicate fleet like a hive of metallic hornets. The drones hacked into Syndicate systems, disabling weapons, jamming communications, and sowing even more chaos among their already disoriented ranks. The battle for the Vega system became a brutal, grinding conflict. Syndicate ships fired wildly, hitting their own allies in the confusion, while the Terran Navy methodically picked them apart. Each human strike was calculated and precise, targeting command ships and supply vessels to cripple the Syndicate's ability to organize. The warp lanes, once thought to be their greatest strength, became the Syndicate's tomb as their ships were trapped in the very passages they had hoped to control. But the Syndicate's resolve didn't break easily. Desperate to salvage the situation, they called in reinforcements from the outer systems, including several species that had once been members of the Galactic Concord. Earth's former allies, now coerced or bribed into joining the fight, arrived in the Vega system, throwing everything they had at humanity in a last-ditch effort to turn the tide. Admiral Raker, however, had prepared for this eventuality. A second wave of human ships, held in reserve, warped into the system. Armed with experimental railguns and plasma cannons, they tore through the Syndicate reinforcements with relentless precision. The combined might of the Syndicate and their alien allies was no match for humanity's coordination and ingenuity. The Syndicate's final gamble had failed. By the end of the battle, the once proud Syndicate fleet was in ruins, its remnants retreating into deep space. The warp lanes, now littered with debris, remained firmly in human control. Humanity had not just defended its territory, it had shattered the Syndicate's dreams of galactic conquest. As the dust settled, the galaxy took notice. The battle for the void was over, but the war for humanity's survival had only just begun. The defeat at the battle for the Void left the Syndicate shattered, but not broken. In the wake of their failure, their leadership, now desperate and fractured, devised one final reckless plan. They would consolidate all remaining forces, every ship and soldier under their command, and launch an all-out assault on Earth itself. It was a last-ditch effort, a gamble of staggering proportions. If they could break Earth, humanity would fall. The other human colonies would be isolated, and the resistance would crumble. The Syndicate knew that this would be their last stand, and humanity's too. For weeks, the Terran fleet's long-range sensors picked up faint signals, warp signatures, shifting formations, a silent buildup of ships at the edge of known space. Humanity braced itself. Across Earth's colonies, the UTC issued the highest-level alert. Every warship was called back, every colony ordered to reinforce planetary defenses. Civilians were evacuated to bunkers deep beneath Earth's surface. There was no longer any doubt the Syndicate was coming, and they were throwing everything they had at humanity's homeworld. The final battle began at the outskirts of the Sol system. The first wave of Syndicate ships, battle-worn but still deadly, emerged from warp space in coordinated patterns. Their plan was simple: punch through the outer defense lines and make a direct assault on Earth. They had the numbers, the desperation, and nothing left to lose. But Earth had prepared for this moment. The UTC, under the leadership of Admiral Raker, had fortified the Sol system to an unprecedented degree. Orbital defense platforms encircled the planets, each equipped with the most advanced weaponry humanity had ever developed. The Terran fleet, now bolstered by warships from every human colony, waited in strategic formations. Yet what the Syndicate didn't know was that humanity had one final secret, a weapon that could turn the tide of the war in an instant. As the Syndicate's vanguard broke through the first line of human defenses, the true scale of their assault became clear. Thousands of ships, from sleek cruisers to massive capital ships, poured into the system, blotting out the stars as they closed in on Earth. The Terran fleet met them head-on, and the void between planets erupted into chaos. Laser fire, plasma cannons, and missiles streaked through the darkness, lighting up the blackness of space in a cataclysmic ballet of destruction. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, the result of months of preparation. The new AI-driven drone swarms and stealth fighters, now battle-tested, weaved through Syndicate formations, dismantling their forces from within. Yet, despite humanity's skill and strategy, the Syndicate's sheer numbers began to wear down their defenses. For every Syndicate ship destroyed, more seemed to take its place. It was then that Admiral Raker gave the order to deploy Earth's final weapon, the Aegis Protocol Asterisk. Hidden deep within Earth's largest moon, Luna, was a massive energy field generator, something humanity had developed in secret. It was designed to warp space-time itself, creating a defensive barrier around Earth, impenetrable by any known means of attack. As the Syndicate forces pushed closer, the Aegis Protocol Asterisk activated, and a shimmering energy field enveloped Earth and its surrounding space. The Syndicate, now too deep in their attack to retreat, found themselves cut off. Their warships slammed into the energy barrier, helpless against the impenetrable shield. With Earth protected, humanity's forces regrouped for a counteroffensive. The Terran fleet, now on the offensive, began systematically dismantling the trapped Syndicate forces. It was a slaughter, humanity's final, brutal strike against an enemy that had tried to destroy them at every turn. As Syndicate ships exploded in fiery bursts, their warlords watched in horror as their final assault crumbled. One by one, their ships were obliterated, their war machines rendered useless against the superior tactics and unyielding resolve of humanity. By the time the last Syndicate warship fell, the once mighty armada had been reduced to nothing more than drifting wreckage. The last stand of the Syndicate had failed. The war, which had begun with humanity's expulsion from the Galactic Concord, had reached its end. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, believing they would break under pressure, but instead, they had risen, stronger and more unified than ever before. As the smoke cleared and the void fell silent once more, Earth stood undefeated. The remnants of the Syndicate scattered into the far reaches of space, never to return. And though the cost of victory had been high, humanity had proven, once and for all, that they could stand alone against the galaxy. The stars now knew humans were not to be trifled with. They had fought, bled, and sacrificed for their survival, and they had won. In the aftermath, the galaxy was forever changed. The shattered remnants of the Concord could no longer deny humanity's strength. Though the future remained uncertain, one truth was undeniable. Humanity would chart its own course among the stars, free from the chains of any alliance, and capable of defending itself against whatever dangers the galaxy might hold.